Well guys, I got my shim in the mail today from Boomer, my 5,000th shim. So what I got to do is I got to take this bearing plate back off, put that shim back in there, put it back on again, and then come over here and check my end play again. And then hopefully we're in good shape, because we were at 13 thousandths after I fixed my thrust washer. And this is a 5,000 shim, so we should be at 8 after I put that in, and the spec is 6 to 12, so let's give it a shot. Alright guys, so I got my shim in here, and we'll see how we're doing here. So we're at 0, and we actually go up to about 7, and the tolerance is from 6 to 12, so we're on the tight end of the tolerance here in the 7 to 8 range, so I'm happy with that. And you know, before we were way off, so this is great. We're gonna have a nice engine here that's pretty tight, and can't wait. Alright guys, we're about to get the CCKA slap back together. We got the oil pump on, our cam gear. What happened is, when I originally put it together, I left out a shim a thrust bearing that goes over here. So I had all kinds of crankshaft end play. So once I figured that out, I had to take the rods back out, take the cam gear over here back out, take the whole crankshaft out. Then I had to put that stupid thrust washer in, put everything back together. Then I had to order a 5,000 shim to get my end play right on the crankshaft, which you just saw. So now, finally, everything's ready to go back together. So I just put my oil pump back on in the tube. I got a new gasket here on the base. And basically, we're just going to slide this pump into this base here and slap it together. And I'd like to paint all this stuff. So before I do that, I'm going to try to clean this grease off the dipstick tube here and off this base here. And once I put this back together, you're never going to see this base. It's going to be underneath this cylinder here, so you won't see it. So after we get this on, then we got to put our timing cover back on, our heads, our intake, our carburetor, and we're pretty much ready to roll. So let's get working. Well guys, I sprayed a little bit of yellow paint on the Onan here. I got the oil pan on. I got the timing cover mounted on it. And I'm missing the bolts. I got to put 5 bolts in the cover, but other than that, I got a new oil seal on the crankshaft here. Tomorrow, what we got to do is get this intake manifold down here and carburetor prepped up and the starter prepped up, and we'll be heading in the right direction. So this stuff was so dirty and so greasy when I started that there was buildup on these components here, like a 1/4 inch thick of greasy dirt grime stuff. So at this point, I got all that cleaned off today, and we're going to try to put it back together. And I can really put the input gear onto the machine, and I got to get my engine adapter plate cleaned up and mounted, and then I'm probably going to put it on the tractor just like it is. It's going to be a lot lighter for me to move. This engine's very heavy. Just the starter feels like it weighs 40 pounds. So if I can save my back a little bit, that'd be great. And we'll see what happens. Well guys, I got the intake manifold all painted up here. And let's see, what do we got here? We got new gaskets down here on both sides. And the next step is to mount the carburetor. Oh man, I just got it all dirty. Guess I gotta wash my hands. The next step here is to mount the carburetor, so we have a new gasket for the carb. It's kind of interesting, but this was the old gasket that was in there, which is clearly not anything like the new gasket. So I don't know why they had that thing in there, but we got the right gasket now. And our next step after that is we got to mount the points box, which will go kind of up here in this area. But first I got to clean these points out here. They're a little bit crusty over here, and I want to paint this too. And so that will be our next step. And with the hydraulic pump for the loader, the normal intake manifold just goes on with two bolts that are 2 inches long. But the way the hydraulic pump works is the frame rail comes about like here, and there's an extension on the frame rail that comes out and bends out at a 90-degree angle, and they actually use this bolt to secure it, so I can't put that bolt in tight yet. And the actual bolt that will go on there is longer than the regular one because it has to go through that piece of steel. So maybe this other bolt is 2 1/4 instead of 2, or 2 1/2, or something like that. So once we mount the carb on the intake manifold, then we can mount it with this bolt temporarily. I'm not going to torque it down yet. And we can hook up our fuel line here to our fuel pump. And I'm painting the carburetor, the air cleaner right now, so that'll be our next piece to put in. But that's about it.